Okay, you're live.
All right, thank you. Hold on a second. Okay, so I'm going to call to order Projects and Services Committee for June 22nd. The first item of business would be call to order. I'm going to dispense of the pledge just because it's just a little weird when we do it on Zoom. So it's not that I'm not patriotic. I want to be clear. So having said that, I'll ask for a roll call.
Chair Scott Haggerty,
There.
Vice Chair Carla Brown, actually
Actually, Jerry Penton.
Director Bob Warner,
Here.
Pleasanton alternate Jerry Penton.
Here.
You
All
have
right.
a quorum.
Okay. So this is a little different than what I've seen in the past. Where's Michael? Is he on? No, it's a committee meeting. Do I need to read this whole thing?
No.
Okay. So if you're wondering why we're meeting via Zoom, go ahead and go to the agenda and read the beginning. It'll tell you what happened on June 5th. And you'll learn all kinds of great stuff about public health officers and everybody else. Okay, so with that, I will now move to roll call. Oh, we did that. Meeting open to the public at time which you can speak to anything on the agenda. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak? Perfect. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes of April 27th. Looking for an approval. I got a motion by Penton and it was a second by Halbert. Roll call, please.
Chair Scott Haggerty,
Yes.
Director Bob Warner,
Yes.
Director David Halbert,
Yes.
Pleasanton alternate Jerry Penton.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move the executive director's report, item 5.
Hey, everyone hear me okay? Got it. Hey, I've included quite a few things in the executive director's report. I won't bother to go over all of them, but I would certainly just want to make mention that we're continuing to work with our regional partners and MTC and other transit agencies around the country really to adopt best standards or best practices during COVID-19. So the ridership on wheels continues to increase steadily. You've got some numbers there in your report, which see us averaging for the first time since COVID-19 started 1,000 rides a day, down from 660 rides a day at the bottom. And just to remind you, we were over 7,000 rides pre-COVID. We've got a lot of projects moving. I've got information there on the transit signal priority, and I see Jennifer Yeamans is on. So if you have any questions, she's here today for that. We've also got some information on the rapid bus stop project on Santa Rita, also in regard to the Dublin parking garage, trying to get a shovel in the ground before the end of the calendar year, at least for the street improvements. For that project, we've got some info on the shared autonomous vehicle project. And Tone, you have a couple of slides for that. You could show the committee just to kind of give them the absolute latest on the autonomous vehicle project.
Yes, I do. Let me share. Are you done with your report?
Yeah, other than if there are any questions, I mean, obviously we have on the agenda today information on Atlantis, and that's in the executive director's report, as well as we've been working on the zero emission study.
So I guess what Tone wants to do is finish up with you, Michael. So I'll ask, is there anything under what Michael said or any questions on the issues that Michael has reported? Good. Okay, Tone, we'll go to you then.
Okay.
Shoot me with this project. It's finally getting off the ground.
Sure,
Yeah,
Michael. Sure.
Can you all see the slide?
Yep.
Okay. So as you recall, as a result of an incident in Columbus, Ohio earlier this year, NHTSA suspended all US AV testing involving an Easy Mile vehicle. So in order to lift the suspension, additional safety measures have to be put in place. These safety measures include installation of seatbelts, software update, enhanced warning signs, and remediation training for operators. So all those efforts were completed last week, as well as the installation of the video surveillance system and the mapping of the route. So we have really good news. Testing actually started today, and I have a short clip of the vehicle in action from last Friday. Not sure why it's not playing. It played earlier.
Says something about QuickTime.
Yeah.
Jennifer, can you try on your computer?
Tone, can you send us that file?
Sure.
Jennifer, are you on?
Yeah, she's with me right now. We played earlier. It was fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why
I
it's not.
can try to do it on mine.
Okay, try. This always happened.
But it does move faster than that, right, Tone?
It does, a little bit faster.
No, I don't think it does, Jerry, to be honest with you. What are we doing?
So Jennifer is going to try on her computer.
So Tone, real quick, I know we can email that out, but they'll continue testing throughout this week out there.
They are. So the plan is to test for the first month without passengers, and then we start carrying passengers after the first month.
So I know we had a ribbon cutting for
Go
this.
ahead, David Halbert.
I know we had a ribbon cutting for this a long time ago. I'm wondering if there's some way that we could, you could send out this video, that's one thing, but could we do a marketing piece that maybe a 30-second YouTube or something that says, coming soon, just so people are aware what they see, whether it's coming a month from now or 6 weeks from now or whatever, something from LAFTA that says coming soon, and a video of it going down the street, and a little bit of a reintroduction to the project. It would be just helpful for the community to know what's going on. Maybe get Macaulay involved from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, you bet.
Cool.
There
So
you
what
go.
did video taken? Is this from the ribbon cutting day or is this recent?
This was last Friday.
Okay. Great.
Lovely. Any questions? Tone, did you have anything else?
Not on the SAV unless you have questions for me.
All right. Anybody have a question on this?
Nope.
Okay. Then with that, Mike, you're done. So we'll move to item 6, the Atlantis Transit Facility schematic design.
You got this?
Yeah, so this is also my item. So at the June board meeting earlier this month, Michael reported that LAFTA has hired Kimley Horn and Associate to work on the conceptual planning for the Atlantis Transit Facility located at the Oaks Business Park. At the same meeting, the board also approved a revised capital budget submittal that included the second phase of the project for schematic design. We have invited Mike Mowry from Kimley Horn to today's meeting to provide a progress report on our current effort, as well as outlining what's planned for the second phase of the project. So take it away, Mike.
Good afternoon, Chair Haggerty and committee members. I want to share a slide deck with you talking about where we are in the conceptual phase and how we'll move from this phase into schematic design as we look about a new home for LAFTA at the Atlanta site and new maintenance facility. Again, my name is, sorry, let me choose the right program to share, and I am going to do it as a PDF so that if necessary later we can zoom in. Again, Kimley Horn is the lead on the project. We're part of LAFTA's on-call program. I'm the project manager on this project, as well as one of our local principals here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We'll go down to the slides. There we go. Kimley Horn is overall a multi-services firm nationally. We do have about 200 people in Northern California, in Alameda County, in Pleasanton and Oakland primarily, and then also an office in San Jose. This is exactly the type of projects we do, complex civil and planning projects for both public and private agencies. Some of the services we're providing for this project: civil overall layout of the project, landscape architecture, parking, and then we've also serving LAFTA on ITS projects right now as well, and have been part of the RAPID project in different phases throughout the course of that overall project. Moving to the site, and I'm going to try and go through all this relatively quickly and hit the high points because we would like your feedback today. As we move into schematic design, it's important to get this committee's point of view and feedback into our development process. The site is here along Atlantis Drive, off of Highway 84, which is in an area that's had some new or recent warehousing development. LAFTA's owned the site for a little while. This shows you an aerial where this facility was built recently and opened, I think, within about the last year or so. The site generally is fronted by Discovery Drive. We do call it the Atlantis Court site because it does have Atlantis Court address, and then bounded on the other side by Challenger Street. This is laid out differently than some of the other slides. So north is now to your left, but I want to take you through the highlights of the site layout. So again, what is existing there already is a maintenance area with fueling station and wash, and generally trying to retain that area as part of the proposed project. So you'll see that here on this slide, we're generally maintaining that area. We are on some of the cut areas, hemming into that area in order to allow for development of the other two main areas. And I'll highlight those now. So along Discovery Drive, there is an existing driveway. We do plan to use that for entry. Discovery Drive will be the front door to the site. This is where we're showing an administrative and operations building. And we'll go into the architecture of that with one of our team members here in a little bit. This will also be where both the public and the employee parking will primarily live off of this access from Discovery Drive, including both accessible parking as well as some EV charging parking. In the middle of the site, again, is the majority of the maintenance facility as it is today, along with some additional facility improvements, mostly striping, to incorporate some of the expanded service for LAFTA in the years to come. This access is currently existing today off Atlantis Court, and we intend to retain that access location. And then at the back part of the site, if you think of it in thirds, it would be the new maintenance facility. This would have interior truck maintenance, bus maintenance for both the standard buses as well as articulated larger buses, and then some outdoor facilities as well. What you're seeing here is that there is some existing landscaping on the site. We will improve some of those landscape areas and do some replanting, as well as incorporate new site design requirements from a bioswale and stormwater treatment, which are the slightly darker areas of green that you're seeing. So essentially the site overall will be bounded by a greenway. And then some of the site right now does have existing walls or fences. Where it makes sense, we'll retain those and extend those to keep the whole area secure, especially for the bus facility maintenance areas itself. With that, we do have two architects on the project that are primarily leading one of the two locations, the Administrative and Operations Building, which is about 22,000 square foot of usable space, really primarily the western part of the building being for LAFTA administration, and the eastern part of the building, and the western part of the building being for administrative and operations uses. And then we have a separate architect, FMG Architects, that will talk about the maintenance building. I'd like to introduce Brandon Hubbard, who will talk about the operations and administration building.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I think we'll go to the next slide. So as Mike mentioned, it's rotated now so that north is up. So I'm just going to quickly go over the plans just to give you an idea. And then if anyone has any more detailed questions, feel free to ask. So yeah, as Mike explained, the general concept is that the operations building is on the left, which is the west, and then the left administration is the right building or the east side. So the main entry is right in the middle of the screen. You can see the lobby there. That is off of the north parking lot. We've placed a main lobby stair that connects the two levels that's within the lobby, and then elevators across from that for access to the second level. Then there's the shared restrooms to the left of the screen on that lobby. So those are shared by either side of the buildings by both occupants. Going through the operations building on the left side, a few of the highlights. There's a gym on the ground floor along with a kitchen and activity area for the drivers, which includes a driver's lounge just off of the stair there where the lockers are located too. Individual rooms along the south side. You'd have to go, the main is the dispatch and control center for autonomous vehicles. That's shown there. This has some basic cubicle layouts to give an idea of the size for now. Moving to the left administration building. So the boardroom is just off of the main lobby, along with various enclosed offices, and then also some paratransit ops cubicle areas, and then additional kitchen and break room and storage areas, along with unisex toilets on that level as well for use just for that side of the building. Go to the second level, there's a stair on the east there also that can communicate between the two. So again, the restrooms off of the lobby on the second level. Again, so those stack, so access by either side. And then if we're looking at the left administration building now, the director's offices, closed offices along the south, and then the standard offices and conference room located along the north side. And then moving to the west operations building, as I mentioned, the restrooms across the north side. Then with the training room and EOC building, or room rather, then flanked by the training manager and training super area. And then again, the assorted relevant offices along the south with a open stair connecting the two levels in the middle there. So.
And if I could add to what Brandon was just saying, so this effort, and I should have covered this before, is a refresh of an effort that was done in 2013. And what I would say is significant about the floor plans, while there's a lot of detail here and probably a little bit difficult to see on your screen, is that that effort did have a little bit of intermingling for the operations contractor versus LAFTA administration. And this was really formed to keep those two entities in operations and staffing slightly more separate and planned intentionally in that way. So with the left side or west side of the building focused on that operations contractor, and the right side, the east side, focused with the LAFTA administration and board, board functions.
So outside of that interface though, what else was changed? A lot of it seems the same. That's my first question. Second question, because of COVID, are we keeping in mind distancing now and things like that? Because look, it's going to be around. It's kind of the way of the world for now. And then maybe you heard it and I didn't see it, but where's the board of directors meet?
So if I could,
It's
Chairman
downstairs, right?
Haggerty, yeah, so, sorry, going to the first floor. So I'll take your questions in reverse order. So the board room itself is off the central lobby on the first floor.
Perfect.
Really the COVID, I would say that we haven't necessarily planned the space specific to reacting to COVID right now. And part of that is timing. The facility would not be built. I think we've talked about more of a 3 or 4 year time frame before opening, and Michael or Tone can correct me on that.
Yeah, and you know, I agree with you, but I'm just not sure that some of the things that are coming out in relationship to social distancing and thing, I'm not quite sure those will go away immediately. So I mean, I think we should have it in the back of our mind.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We will incorporate that as we look forward in the plan. And then generally, yes, the layout from kind of a central core, central hallway access to the office and or meeting rooms is very similar to the old plan.
If I could add, the other thing is the airflow. That you make sure that it's, you know, consistent with the right kind of separation there and curtains.
So
And
we're
then if
capturing
you
that
got- just so
note.
you know, I'm watching the participants. So if you want to speak and raise your hand, just press the raise your hand feature.
I was looking for it. I couldn't find it, but I'm looking.
Click on participants down on the bottom.
Mike, did you want to go to the next slide as well, just to kind of?
Yeah, and so we do have a 3D illustration as well for the building.
Oh, beautiful.
So this was just a quick concept image. This is looking from the north at the main entrance, just to give a general idea of what it might look like, but it's very, very conceptual and kind of early stage.
Okay, anything else?
That's it as far as the design. Yep.
So
Any questions? No questions? All right, you got lucky so far.
I raised my hand there, Scott. I have a question.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I just, in looking back at the design, it looks like it's really cut up into office spaces, and a lot of new architecture that I've seen in larger facilities have been an open environment architecture. Is there a reason why this is really back to really kind of old school office? It doesn't, going to Scott's point, it's the ability to expand that for a COVID-related environment of being able to spread people out and whatnot. It's really chopped up into smaller offices, so you wouldn't be able to react to that. Is there a reason why this was done, or is this just this is what it looked like in 2013? You're going to stay with that?
I think the reaction to that, thank you for the question, would be that it's twofold. One, on the operations side, that's the operator has very distinct roles. The people in those staffing has very distinct roles, with the training supervisor and manager as an example of the second floor layout here on the screen, specific uses for training. So it felt like a lot of those specific uses, lended themselves to specific space management and dedication. For the LAFTA side, I think as we worked with LAFTA, I would say that there is a very specific set of staffing and director positions that require offices. We did, in an earlier plan, have a little bit more open layout for some of the senior level positions, but not director level positions, and it's transitioned to this layout, but we could incorporate some of that back into the set.
Yeah, maybe
Mike,
an alternate plan to show more space in case of so on and so forth.
Yeah. Michael, you want to speak?
Yeah, hey, when you had mentioned, what's the main difference is that, one of the key things is just space. Currently with the admin and the operations, you have 11,000 square feet here at Rutan. And in this design setup, you have 24,000 square feet. And then the maintenance, which I think we'll get into here in a few seconds, it was at 16,000 square feet currently at Rutan. And in this schematic, it goes to 31,000 square feet. So there's a lot more square feet that we're working with here, which is, you know, one of the key things. I think we're on top of each other here. We've got interns in the copy room, and we've got buses being parked in maintenance bays and in the bus wash. And I mean, we're just out of space here. So I just think that was one of the key points we'd want to bring out, is that you basically get 100% more square footage with these with this design layout.
So, and then on the agenda, you're requesting an additional $350,000. Is that for more detailed work at that point?
Yeah, this from the beginning, this has always been a design build project in the board's mind. And so we wanted to get it to 30% design, which is your basic jumping off point for getting a design build contract in place. And we felt with a potential, you know, stimulus infrastructure package coming out, if we could get it to 30% design, we could possibly have this as one of LAFTA's projects.
Yeah, I was looking at this, trying to figure out this work that was done. Did that cost us $350,000? So I finally the light went on and realized it's for future work. Okay, anybody else have anything? So I guess we have a maintenance portion too.
Yes, sir. I'd like to introduce John Inhofe, who will talk about the maintenance facility, and I'll scroll to that next slide.
John, are you related to Frank Imhoff?
No, not that I know of. Can you hear me?
That's good for you. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So this is also oriented north at the top. As you mentioned, it's approximately 31,000 square feet right now. In the current plan, we made a few modifications to what was originally done. It has 10 repair bays. 6 of those bays are transit bus bays. We added 2 articulated bus bays, and then 2 spaces for SAVs. So the plan's pretty clearly organized. Adjacent to the maintenance bays are the support rooms for the maintenance area. That's all part storage, shops, and supervisors' offices. And then completely separate to the west are the employee facilities. There's a restrooms, lockers, training facility, and a kitchen. And so it's organized so that the employee functions are away from the work areas. And then everything is connected by the central spine. There's a circulation bay that runs down the center. And can you go to the next image, Mike? Are any questions about this part of it?
You know, I do have a question. I hate to interrupt you, but I can't.
Sure.
So how have you thought about, you know, integrating electric bus vehicles and things like that? I mean, I'd hate to, you know, I mean, I know it's maybe just a charging type thing, but it depends on how they charge. So how are you thinking about electric buses coming forward?
Well, so in the report, it mentioned that primarily most of the service is done off-site. They send parts out for rebuild, and for primarily the function of the space is for tires and lubrication. So there's really no, besides the lifts, there's no specific equipment in place.
What about charging equipment? What about while it's
well,
there?
you would need to probably plan for that equipment, what kind of space requirements it has, and what kind of electrical loads you would have to provide the building.
That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sorry, Speaker Haggerty. We as part of the next phase, we will have a mechanical engineering provider, an electrical provider, do a load designation to see if we do charging stations, what transformer equipment, what we would need in this facility to support that.
Yeah, because I mean, some buses charge from overhead, right?
Correct.
So I would want to make sure that, you know, the ceiling is rated enough to hold that charging equipment or things like that. I just want to know some thoughts been put into it.
Understood, and that will be
Noted.
part of the
Yeah.
next phase.
Okay.
And can you go to the next slide, Mike?
Yes, I can.
Thanks. So this is an image based on the original program, and that was produced by Gannett Fleming. You can see that there's a sloped roof over the employee in the office area, which gives it a separate look. It's a lower building. And then there's a clear story. Natural light comes in through a clear story over that central circulation spine. So can you go to the next slide, Mike? This is an alternate concept that we came up with in lieu of providing light that runs down through the middle of the building. We have continuous glazing that runs around the perimeter, letting much more natural light in. And you can see the office areas and the employee function area is broken out as a separate lower building.
I think
So
the
this
other thing,
slide-
John, sorry, I
What's
think
that?
the other thing, John, that you're going to note is just that while this is just a massing study, this is really becomes the front door of the facility. And so the treatment of this is the priority for the next phase. And then also the inclusion of the articulated bus bays, which would be here on this facade.
Yes, and I also wanted to mention that the site is sloping an 1/8 inch per foot across the entire site. So there's a difference in elevation at the entry of approximately 20 inches. We'll have to accommodate that during site development.
Yeah,
So we
Jerry
end up with
Patton has a
flat
question.
bays.
Mr. Imhoff.
Yeah, I just,
Jerry Patton.
thank you, Scott. I just want to go back to Scott's question about charging. This facility eventually, and LAFTA will eventually be at a zero emission bus system by 2040. So we're building this building for longer use than between now and 20 years. So would the charging take place inside this building, or would this parking lot between the two buildings be full of charging equipment, and would that be part of this design?
I
So
think
just so you're clear, my question was, while a bus is being worked on, it may need to be charged.
Right, okay.
I'm not talking about when buses come in at night for charging. I would assume those are going to be in some sort of a solar canopy of some sort.
Well, I just
Yeah.
wanted to confirm that's what the parking lot would look like.
Yes, so thank you for your question. We have talked with LAFTA staff about the main charging overnight function occurring in this area, which is really the overnight bus parking. We've started to talk about a solar array. We haven't fully decided on it yet. If we'd have those canopies, we want to be able to keep some of this sightline open, and then also to allow a little bit of like a bus rodeo training activity out here. So positioning of a solar array to help with that charging, we're trying to find the right solution for.
Okay, thanks.
So can I chime in real quick?
Go ahead, Tom.
So as Mike alluded to earlier, this is the initial phase of conceptual design. And then we have Savannah Gupton here from CTE, who's currently on board to help us with the zero emission bus study. So our plan was to connect the two firms at a later time when Kimley Horn entered into the second phase of the project to work with CTE to determine what is an ideal layout to incorporate in the zero emission vehicles later on. And that's why it's not in the current plan layout.
Yeah, I mean, I think we understand that, but the other part of this is you're putting something to us to ask questions, and these are the questions that we're coming up with to at least make sure thought is put into it. I mean, I would hate to build a brand new building and then figure out the ceiling couldn't hold the chargers that for the buses while they're in being worked on. That would be a really bad feeling.
Yeah, no, that's definitely being considered because that's one of the questions that CT raised recently. And we realized that there's not enough capacity here at the Rutan facility to add to convert to 100% zero emission buses fleet.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Imhoff.
I think that's all I have for now.
All right.
So just, sorry if I could, Chairman Haggerty. So as Tone said, we're currently in phase one, just wrapping up concepts. Again, you can see that we're early in the process. We have also done a topographic survey, which will help the entire design team in order in the next step of the design process to move towards that 30% bidding document phase. We will incorporate some of the comments we received from you today, and we are scheduled to present to many of you again at the board meeting on actually July 6th. I believe the staff packet is July 1st, which is what's shown on the screen. And then in phase two, really the schematic design phase is when we'll do a lot more of the details, incorporating the comments we received from this group today, looking to have a draft version of that schematic design set in early August with final design sets and engineering estimate early September, along with what Director Michael Treat was saying about having this as a project going forward through grant funding or other exercises.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other questions from the board? All right, I see none. So as I understand it, Michael, this is an action item. You need $350,000 to complete this work.
Correct.
Or
I've been
at least
operating
get-
under my,
At least get further down the road.
you got it. Phase
All right.
two.
So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
I got Penton,
Second.
I got Halbert. There is a motion and a second. All right, it's a roll call vote. I just want to confirm, I did a roll call vote on the minutes, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a roll call vote, please.
Scott Haggerty,
Aye.
David Hubbard,
Yes.
Bob Warner. Bob Warner? Bob, can you hear me? You're on mute. Bob Warner? Okay, Jerry Penton?
Yes.
Bob, can you hear me?
Can we get off the shared screen, please?
Bob Warner, can you hear me?
I don't see, oh, there he is. Yeah, Bob's there.
That's why I'm trying to see him. Just tell him to put his thumbs up.
You see a black screen. I don't see him muted.
He had his hand raised.
I don't see that he has his hand raised.
He did. I just lowered it, but
I've lost audio, so I don't know what the problem is.
Well, you're good. Speak. You say
here
aye.
you go. It's your turn to vote. Bob Warner.
Now he muted himself. Unmute, Bob.
Bob,
All right,
can
we'll
you-
pass him for now, and if he gets back, Bob, you're on. Can you say yes or no?
Bob Warner, it's your time to vote.
All right, we're going to move on. Motion passed unanimously. If Bob gets back on, Bob, just turn it off and then come back on. I'll allow him to vote then. So we're going to move to item 7, the zero emission bus study update. And I believe, as I was told, it's Savannah. There you are. Mike, did you want to introduce this or?
So I can do the introduction. So Savannah is from Center for Transportation and the Environment. She is the managing consultant. As you know, we recently entered in a contract with CTE to have them perform a zero emission bus study The study is being done under the direction of LAPTA's board of directors, as well as CARB's Innovative Clean Transit Regulation. The goal of the study is to develop a transition plan outlining the capital project required to fully electrify the fleet. Savannah is here today to provide an overview of and the timeline of the project.
Okay, great, Tone. Before you get too far, Tone, and Savannah, I noticed Bob's on. Bob, you want to try voting again? Bob, unmute yourself and say yes. Didn't work. Okay, Savannah, take it away.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
So
Yes.
far,
All right.
I noticed you did your dishes. That's good.
Yeah, welcome to my Oakland apartment.
There you go.
Very intimate setting for the presentation.
There you go.
Get it going. All right. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us on the line. My colleagues, Steve and Nikki, are also called into the call. But yeah, we're really pleased to kick off this project with you all. We have been working with the team for a couple weeks now, went under contract late May. And hopefully I'll be able to answer some of the questions from the last that were raised in the last presentation, but it's very awesome to see you all thinking ahead in that way. That's what we love to see in a client. So like Tone said, we are a specialty consulting group. We are a mission-driven nonprofit, and our goal is to take over the transit world with zero emission vehicles and make sure that we are advancing clean and sustainable innovative transportation to clean up the air and make sure that we get quiet, nice, heavy duty vehicles on the road. And so we work in a lot of spaces, and I have a slide on that, but we are located in Atlanta, Berkeley, and Los Angeles, as well as St. Paul in the Midwest. So we have a pretty large national presence. And our specializations are, we do zero emission, like I said, exclusively. So many of you are familiar with the Low-No grants. We only work on the no side. And we do work on the program generally quite a lot. And we do a lot of feasibility and transition studies. So many agencies like yourselves are really interested in what does it look like in 20 years when we have a fully electric fleet, and how much work comes along with it and what are the costs and everything. So we specialize in those. We've done 18 to date, and we just are ratifying our first Innovative Clean Transit rollout plan, which is a part of your work plan this month, actually maybe on Thursday of next week. So that's something that we're well versed in. We have a staff of about 40 engineers and planners that work to do projects like that, as well as what's the general duty cycle and energy demand of the vehicles in order to accomplish the routes that we want to put them on. We also look into production and prototype work. CT actually started out of a DOE grant for a hybrid electric military vehicle. So kind of working on new technology in that space, as well as just general deployments, getting the buses on the road. And I say buses over and over again because you guys are most interested in that, but we do work with other zero emission technology. So we have an autonomous vehicle specialist on staff. We also work in drayage trucking, top loaders, and work like that. So brief introduction to CTE. One thing we always like to mention is that because we're mission driven, we're not beholden to kind of profit, because our executive director likes to say we're not very good at making money. That's true. And we don't have to answer to kind of a profit analysis or any of the OEMs that are selling the bus. So they're all members on our board, but we don't actually take commission or anything like that. And so we're fully exclusively focused on making the technology work for you. This is just a quick introduction into where we are. You can see we have a few specific types of projects. So we have prototype development, like I mentioned, smart development, fleet transitions, which is you all. So you'll be a little blue dot in the Bay Area, and then education and outreach. And then these are just the folks that are working on your project. I'm the one on the right side, and then Steve is with us on the phone, and Nikki as well. So quickly for the presentation, we'll take you over some zero emission bus technology. It's kind of important to understand what's available at the moment and what options you're looking at. And I'm sure you all are familiar with them, but we like to break it down as well in case it's anybody's first time seeing it. And then we'll go over the CARB Innovative Clean Transit requirements and regulations. So what are you all beholden to in 2023? And then what does your fleet transition assessment actually look like when we get to it? As well as the plan and deliverables that you'll be receiving from us. So first up is the technology differential that you have here. So many of you are probably familiar with this. There are battery electric buses and fuel cell electric buses, and they kind of have different performance measures and different benefits and different cons, so to speak. And so we kind of listed them out here so that you could see. But one big thing to notice about the battery electric, and you may have heard this from your sister agencies, is that sometimes when you transition to an all battery electric fleet, you have to increase the fleet size. That is because the duty cycle or some of the power on board doesn't quite meet what your diesel buses or your CNG buses can do. And so it would have to come home to charge before it could really finish the routes as they can be currently blocked and all of that. So another thing is they do charge, as you guys mentioned before, and the charging time can take a bit longer than the traditional fuel that you're used to. You know, a 6-minute gasoline fill or something like that takes a bit longer. And then the fuel costs can vary. In California, you all of us, we are used to a little bit higher electricity, whereas some of the folks in the South that we work with, they can get away with like a nickel a kilowatt hour. So that's another thing to pay attention to. And we do the fuel pathway on the bottom for you all to look at, because that's really the big difference here is on board a battery bus, you just have a bunch of batteries lining the bottom of the vehicle, and that charges and it holds your demand, your energy requirement for the full route. And then the fuel cell, however, you only have one battery on board typically, and you have a fuel cell which powers the battery, which powers the drive. So that's the big difference between them. And the fuel cell electric bus does take hydrogen as the fuel. So the infrastructure costs, which we discussed a little bit on the last part, can be a lot higher when you have to buy a lot, many more chargers, whereas on a hydrogen infrastructure, you're typically paying for one station. And it's a little easier to scale it up. And also the hydrogen vehicles are a typical 1-to-1 replacement for internal combustion engines. So that's what an ICE vehicle is. And so you can see a lot of the performance of the ranges match on a fuel cell vehicle to what the buses that you're currently using, whereas a battery electric may not quite be 1-to-1. The fueling time is comparable, but the fuel cost is significantly higher. That's related to the size of the hydrogen market. It's not as robust, but it is growing. And then the infrastructure costs I just mentioned, and then there's also greater resilience when in relation to the grid. So just a 101 on the technologies. So the real reason you all are endeavoring with us is that there's this innovative clean transit regulation with CARB. And so for you all, a smaller agency, it's a little more relaxed. You have to submit your board approved ZEB rollout plan by July 1st, 2023. So we're working on it well in advance. But just a big thing to note is that you don't have to be zero emission or 100% zero emission by 2040. It's a goal that you're zero emission by 2040. The only part that is a rule is the purchasing mandate. And so we have that broken down in the table. That you have the percentage of total new buses that you buy have to be corresponding, 25% of your purchase that year must be zero emission starting 2026 and onward. But you can see it ramps up pretty quickly. You go from 25% to 100 within 3 years. So, and then there are exemptions that exist for this purpose. So you can look into those. And if that's something you all are interested in, CT does assess that for you. And then a big thing to note is cutaway buses, motor coaches, and articulated buses are excluded because there is not a technology out there currently that has passed Altoona that can really support a transition of those vehicles. The next thing, this is a big part of it that that's really interesting to you all, is actually what is CT doing for you? So we start in the planning and initiation phase, and then we move into, this is where we're in the second block from the left currently, and it's requirements analysis and data collection. So this is when we figure out how much energy do we need to keep your fleet running. And that helps us figure out how many battery electric or fuel cell electric buses you'll need to provide the same level of service. And that bleeds into the service assessment and how we kind of decide what could your fleet look like, or give you options rather, we don't decide, what your fleet could look like and how will it change over the next 20 years to that 2040. So we also do a fuel assessment. We do bus capital costs, so we let you know how much it costs to buy all of them. Fuel costs, so how will it come out in the wash when you have an electric fleet in hydrogen purchases or in your electric bill. We also do a maintenance assessment where we help you understand that yes, electric vehicles can sometimes have a lower maintenance cost, but you do have new items that your maintenance team is maybe not used to dealing with, like the batteries and the fuel cell. So we talk about a little bit about how that can change, how your operations work and what the costs are and how they move around, as well as a facilities assessment, which goes into what Kimberly Horn is working on. And what does the footprint look like if you decide to put chargers on your site? What does it look like when all your buses come home to charge at night? Or where can you put a hydrogen station if that's a route that you elect? And then that bleeds into a total cost of ownership assessment, which is all of those expensive things added together to let you know what is the full cost of this transition for the next 20 years. So, and then it makes your ZEB transition plan. And that's a master plan document that we give you, as well as your innovative clean transit regulation document. So I'll show you that in a second. But getting into kind of what some of our graphics look like and what we consider. So you'll see a lot of work like this that you see on the right side, where we help you understand how does your fleet change year to year. And we use the fuel cell technology and the BEV technology. And then we use your current fleet, which is the kind of those internal combustion engines that are on the left-hand side in the purple, orange, and red. And how does it look when it changes? We always consider, unless we're told otherwise, the baseline fleet, which is what does your fleet look like if you don't buy any zero emission vehicles? The second option is what does it look like when it's all battery electric and there's on route and depot charging? And what does the fleet look like when it's a depot charge battery electric fleet, excuse me, or split and you have a half fuel cell electric fleet or whatever proportion. We do a duty cycle analysis to let you know how many fuel cell vehicles you would need, which is an option as well to support the fleet. And you can have a mixed technology fleet. And then an all fuel cell electric fleet is also an option that we see some transit agencies going for. So the project deliverables I just mentioned quickly is your Innovative Clean Rollout Plan. That's a document that we're pretty well versed in submitting to CARB. We understand it, have analyzed it for a while. And what we do is we complete it according to what CARB has requested in the legislation to make sure you're compliant. And then the board reviews it in order to submit it to CARB. And then we also give you this much larger document, the Zero Emission Bus Transition Master Plan, which tells you everything that we did for the past 6 or 7 months, why we did it, and how you can use it in the future to make your plans. And so both of these are living documents, and they just support your operations and your goals for sustainability as an agency. The last portion I wanted to include, just in case, since this will be one of the first items that you all see, or could be, you might be seeing them already. A few of the larger agencies have published them if you're interested in that. But this is a list of items that CARB requires that you all view, or that you all submit what you've decided to do. And so there's the goal of how you'll achieve zero emission buses by 2040. how you're going to avoid early retirement. So we don't want to phase any buses out before they're ready. And then the types of technology you'll pursue, a purchasing schedule, a schedule and location for your facilities, a disadvantaged community service plan, if you have one, training plan and schedule, as well as potential funding sources to achieve this. So we'll figure out all of these things for you all to review and wrap it up nicely for you. So that's a lot of content in a short amount of time. So I will cede the floor to questions.
Thank you. Savannah, can you go back 2 slides?
Mhm.
There, one more, I think.
This one?
This one. So I'm trying to figure out in 2040, well, so in 2040, what does the fleet look like? Let me ask it like that. Is it battery? It's battery power and fuel cell?
Well, I should preface, this is not your model. This is another group that elected this pathway, but this particular client, yes, they started purchasing zero emission vehicles in 2020.
Okay. Well, I thought this was for us, kind of where your goal was. And I, I mean, wouldn't you get down to a point where you would recommend to us that you go with either or technology? I mean, why would you want to build 2 infrastructures?
Yeah, so that's part of what's special about our expertise is we look at really what is your situation and what is the best for you. And we do have groups that go for both for redundancy or because they may already have battery electric buses, but we're finding that fuel cell electric buses perform really well. So that's why we consider all of these scenarios. And you would choose one to best fit your needs with all the information we provide. So we do this kind of incrementally. We check in a lot to get a nudging forward, but it's ultimately y'all's decision.
Yeah, I understand that, but it seems to me, and I'll wait for the report, but it seems to me to build 2 infrastructures for 2 different types of technology, it would be more expensive than just going all in on one.
Yeah, that is very possible that it could work out for you all that way. Definitely very possible.
Yeah, I mean, there are some areas where there's like small hills in the Tri-Valley, but this isn't San Francisco, so maybe the battery is the way to go. I don't know. That was just my thought as you were going. And then my assumption is you'll be working closely with Kimberly Horn too, from the previous item.
I believe Tone did indicate that he would connect us. We typically do an infrastructure analysis ourselves, and that includes design plans or site plans. So we'll definitely streamline that to make it the most efficient.
Seems to me like I would like to have your expertise feeding into Kimberly Horn, even though you don't make that much money. There's not a lot of profit, but yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, this agency that we have a picture of is a very large agency. So you're absolutely correct in that it would.
Well, it could be like they have hills and their batteries are going to drain too quick, something like that. So are there any other board member comments? I see none. I see nobody raising their hand. Bob, did you get back on?
I did. My internet connection went unstable for a while.
Okay, well, it's
I had no,
sure. So do you want to vote yes on item 6?
yes,
Okay, was that a yes?
yes.
Yes, okay, good. And then I've now lost some sort of screen action here too. So Savannah.
But I wanted to comment on.
Hold on, Bob, hold on. Savannah, can you get us off the shared screen for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, on what you were just talking about, this item and the other, I totally agree with you that making sure these 2 are coordinated. Also, there seems to be a lot of things uncertain now, as Jerry was talking about on the COVID and you as well. So it seems to me that we, to the extent we can, we make sure we're making well-informed decisions. And I'm not sure what our schedule is, but if we have the time to find out more before we finalize and spend too much money, I think that's the right way to go. I also agree with you that one technology would be where we're going to go. I can't imagine it being two. And then when would we make the decision as to which technology?
Savannah, didn't you say you'd be back to us in 8 months? Did I hear that?
That's kind of the end when we wrap it up. But what we do is we give you as much information as you all need to feel comfortable to take the decision, and just to remember that this is a living document and a projection. It's not, you're not marrying a technology with us. You know, we're not the vendor. So that's the other thing to keep in mind.
Well, if I understood all of this correctly, if we go to the fuel cells, we don't need all this charging stuff.
That is correct.
And so that's a key decision that has to be made before we build that other facility, right? And even design it and spend money on it. So
That's why I want her involved now.
I'm just completely agreeing with you. And what I'm wondering about is on the money we're spending on the previous project, are we losing anything by spending it too early relative to this other decision?
You know, I think as we're working with both CTE and Kimley Horn, you know, we'll pause if needs be with Kimley Horn so that we understand what technology path we're actually going to recommend to the board, and make sure we circle back and get them coordinated so that we're not having to go back and redesign things.
So here's what I would request, if it's okay, and I think this is consistent with what Scott was asking for. We've got these two projects. There are key decisions that are made at certain times. Can we see a combined project schedule that shows that the one feeds in at the appropriate time for the other?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody, don't see any other directors that want to speak. I did check and there are no attendees that want to speak either. So this is an informational item and there's no other questions of the speakers. So I guess we can move on, Savannah, unless you have a final thought.
No, we look forward to working with you, and we will always check in anytime. That's kind of our modus operandi, to always be giving you information and waiting for direction. So I think we can really make it work well for you.
Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate you being on today. Okay, I'll now move to item 8, which is MV Transportation Payment Agreement.
I think this is my last item for today.
I hope so.
At the April PNS meeting, staff brought forth an information item for a payment agreement with MV Transportation. The primary objective of the agreement is to ensure that LAFTA maintain a state of readiness for operation and maintenance activities. In order to do so, LAFTA and MV agreed to share the cost of retaining all the operators that are available and willing to work. At that time, there were a lot of uncertainty surrounding the public health orders and the timing of school reopening. So as a result, staff proposed to only extend the agreement until June 30th and committed to bring the item back to the board if it goes into fiscal year 2021. So with those uncertainties still remain, staff is requesting that the PNS committee recommend to the board to authorize the executive director to extend the payment agreement with MV on a month-to-month basis, at least until service level become more stabilized.
Okay. Any questions of Tone? I see none so far. I see no attendees that wish to speak. I'll go back to the panelists. I still see none. So I'm looking at this point for a motion. All right, moved by Penton because he moved.
Second.
Was that Bob Warner trying to get in? Bob Warner on the second. Roll call vote, please.
Ron Haggerty,
Yes.
David Hubbard,
Yes.
Bob Warner,
Yes.
Jerry Penton.
Yes.
All right, motion passed unanimously. We'll move to item 9, preview of upcoming P&S committee agenda items. Michael?
I'll take in on this one. I mean, you've got your upcoming months and of things that we'll bring to you. Typically, the July meetings are canceled in expectation that in August we're pretty much dark as a board. So I think that's the real near future is just whether there's a need for July meeting at this point.
Wait a minute, does that mean you canceled July and August?
No, typically just we cancel July and then the August board meeting is canceled. And then we pick it right back up in August with committee meetings at the end of August.
Okay, I personally wish we would not have any meetings in August because that's when the board goes silent and then have the meetings in July. But look, if we have our way of doing things, who am I to change things after 23 years? So we'll leave it at that. Anything else? Anybody have any comments? Any of the panelists? The two attendees don't wish to speak. Are there any matters initiated by committee members? All right, well, wonderful. So we're down to item 11, which our next meeting is scheduled for July 27th. And is that true, Michael?
Well, it's on the schedule in case you need it, but typically the committees go dark in July. And
Yeah, I heard that. That's why I was wondering why it's there, but we'll leave it there just in case. So if anybody has any no raging questions, I'd like to turn this Zoom meeting off and answer my phone. Okay, goodbye. We're adjourned. Hi, Pumpkin.